Okay, we're going to get going, even though it's we still got a few people as far as to get on. We apologize if there was any inconvenience getting on and getting, going to registration first or whatever. But we thank you so much for coming, and we're sitting here and listening to Sandy talk about recognizing quality in office furniture. I've had the pleasure of working with Sandy now for the past, is it 8 years, 7 years?
I think it's 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
7 or 8 years now. We first met back at Hightower. Sandy has actually started out at Davis Furniture and then went to Coalesce and then Hightower, and now she's with Watson Furniture. She does a great presentation on anything, and she's really good about knowing quality in office furniture and what to look for. So if you have any questions, feel free to either put it in the comment page or feel free to break in and ask the questions. We're more than happy. We don't mind if you break in and sit there and ask questions and interrupt. And with that, I'm going to just turn it over to Sandy and let her go.
You know what I'm going to redo is I don't think I shared with sound. I didn't. So let me get started again. I'm going to share with sound because there's some groovy music in mine. I'm not going to lie. So let's get started. So that's me. My name's Sandy Yokeley. I'm with Watson Furniture. I have been doing this furniture gig since 1997, which puts me darn near close to about 25 years, which is so disappointing to do the math. But a couple of things about me. I'm a big fan of dogs, which is probably why Tim and I get along so well. And I'm also a fan of Tito's. Tito's and Simply Light Lemonade, that is my go-to drink. And I don't think it was appropriate for me to be drinking during this. So I hope you're enjoying your favorite beverage right now. So let's see if we can make understanding furniture a little bit fun, right? So what are we looking for? We're going to talk about construction. We're going to talk about craftsmanship or comfort and case goods. Fancy that. The materials that we use and sustainability. And as Tim said, recognizing quality in furniture is probably because I have such refined taste in furniture. It actually is true. But there's a reason in contract furniture why we have to think about it, right? So contract furniture is built differently. It's built for heavy or continuous use, right? Somebody could be using it for 24 hours a day. Everything from the interior construction to the exterior material selection are considered when we're designing it, engineering it, and then eventually manufacturing. So commercial furniture takes on a lot of environmental stressors that your residential furniture might not take. Repeated movements, varying heights or weights of people that are using them, the different needs of people, whether they want their desk up or down, they sit all day or they don't sit. And we also have to take into consideration things like fire retardancy or passing testing that is required for furniture in America for commercial environments. The integrity of that furniture's appearance long-term matters, right? So we have to look for materials that are scratch resistant and perhaps UV resistant. If you happen to have this beautiful office with that sunshiny window and that laminated top on that C9 desk, you don't want that to fade over time. So we've got to look for materials that are commercial grade. So designed to be durable, but also have to be easily maintained and longer lasting value. And somewhere hidden in that, guys, is timeless design, right? The classic timeless designs. And those furniture, you all know, right? You recognize those pieces, the ones that will look great forever. And they're even going to look better with a little bit of wear and tear. Another thing that is sort of unique to the commercial furniture industry is the high level of customization that we do. So I don't know about you, but when I go to my local furniture store or online and I want to order a sofa, in addition to waiting somewhere around 18 to 24 months now to get it, you can only pick from like 5 fabrics and maybe 2 or 3 leg options. It's a little bit different in commercial furniture. We're going to do it your way, right? We're going to have conversations about your specific needs, and we're going to customize that furniture and deliver it to you in a very short period of time. As well as at a really reasonable price point. So that's a little bit different aspect of commercial furniture, and why we talk about it as commercial furniture, and maybe we're not going to buy our desk at, well, here in North Carolina, Haverty's is the furniture store among many. So let's talk about how furniture's made, right? So this is about the construction. We're going to talk about the kind of boards we use, the metal, the construction methods, some of the equipment that we use in construction, and then a little bit about those tests that we talked about. So a couple of things right off the bat that we want to look at, and that is how we use brass inserts. So brass inserts go into the wood, and then that allows you to attach a caster or a leg or any other component that may at some point be removable, right? Maybe you're going to reconfigure your office. So it keeps everything going in at a very straight line, but it also provides better connectivity. So once the screw in goes inside of that brass insert, that insert expands or swells in that wood and gives you a really solid connection point. We also use wood dowel construction at Watson, and this is a tried and true method of construction. The use of wood dowels dramatically increases the volume of wood that is actually making contact. So rather than just having, maybe in this case, we're looking like a 1/2 inch piece of wood glued together and stapled, we have these wood dowels that go into the wood, adding to the surface of the glue and giving us a very tight joint. In fact, so much so that when we, if we have freight damage, right? If we have freight damage and it's a case good that has wood dowel construction, the board itself will give before these wood dowels do. So it's a really—
That is done.
What?
I was going to say that is done if it's done correctly, as far as the wood dowel construction, or even the finger joints, as far as that goes. I mean, a lot of companies will talk that they have the finger joints or the corner blocks or the wood dowel construction, but then what they don't worry about is how much space is in between the wood dowel or the finger joints and the piece of wood. So sometimes you get it where it's too little, and when you take and you push those pieces together, it pushes all the glue out, and so then you don't have that tightness. Or the finger joints or the wood dowel are too loose, and when they first put it, it seems really nice because it dries, but then as it dries, it starts to crack, and then it gets wobbly. I know we've all gone to a bar or a restaurant, we've sat down in a chair, and that chair has started to rock back and forth. Now, granted, some of you are looking at me who've known me for a long time and thinking that's just because I had a couple too many, but that's not usually the case. It's usually the case that that glue is cracked now, and so that way that you have those joints wobbling. So just because it says it's dowel construction or finger joint doesn't mean it's done properly, like a high quality manufacturer like Watson.
And all that, one of the things you said, Tim, is a really good point here is when we use
Only
dowel,
one?
only one, just you're lucky I even noticed it. Unlike upholstered furniture, which is my love, my life, it's where I got my start. When you work with case goods, you can't hide anything, right? So those edges are visible to you. Whereas I love the furniture companies, all of them that I worked with, they're fantastic. But when they use wood and finger joint assembly on the inside of a frame, there can be all kinds of excess glue, and they just put some foam and fabric over it, and you never know the difference. But there's a level of precision in case goods here that, to the point that we have equipment that measures the amount of glue that goes in the hole. So there's a very low tolerance for sloppiness and a high level of forced perfection in working with this. So let's talk about the wood that we use. And we use two different kinds. So this is when we're a laminate product company. And when we laminate the top surface and the bottom surface, right? Because if you don't laminate the bottom surface, that HPL laminate's you're gonna have some rainbow wood eventually. It would curve up. So both sides of the surface, we'll talk about a desk surface, have to be laminated. And we use polypropylene edge bending, so PVC free. And when we have a surface that is completely enclosed like that, then we use 1 1/8 inch board, particle board. And you might be like, ooh, particle board, that's just kind of not pretty. Well, it's not pretty, but it's completely covered up. And it is a very good use of wood waste that otherwise go into a landfill. So it's a combination of wood, sawdust, wood dust, resin, and it's heat pressed, and it comes out into these beautiful boards that we get. We also use a medium density fiber board, which you guys probably have heard of as MDF. And we use this because Watson offers exposed edges. And this is sort of one of the differentiators of Watson furniture is we don't just put an edge band on everything. We think the less material we use, the better we are. So we have this higher quality board that allows us to do some really nice exposed edge, like a custom knife edge or a Moreau edge. And we'll see some of those more later. So we have to be thoughtful about how we construct furniture and the component selection that we use, because we're transparent with you about that. And every other furniture manufacturer should be as well. If they're not readily available on websites, you should be able to ask for them and get these. And these are called product specification sheets. And this tells you exactly, I mean, almost to the trade secrets of what is in your furniture, the thickness, the density of the steel. So it's very important that we're using the right things because you guys could see it, right? So let's talk about testing. You guys have heard of BIFMA, right? It's the Business and Institutional Furniture Manufacturers Association, a really boring name for a kind of boring company. Some people call it ANSI-BIFMA. ANSI just stands for American National Standards Institute. And what does that mean? That means that somebody's regulating the testing program so that we're all playing on the same level playing field. So they have some tests that have interesting name like concentrated functional load test. And that just means you need to put, I don't know, 150 pounds on the desktop and let it sit there and make sure it doesn't fall for a period of time. So they're not very sexy. They're not very exciting. But as manufacturers, we like to have a little bit of fun. So I remember when I worked at Coalesce, in fact, Tim says nobody will know this company, but it was Brayton International before it became Coalesce. And that company innovated ply tab construction for the inside of upholstered seating, as opposed to doing traditional stick-built construction. And to test it, we knew it was going to be strong. So we took a ply tab frame and a stick-built frame to the top of the building and threw them off the roof just to see which one would survive. So we received all of the proper certifications, and ply tab construction is now an industry standard. So we have a little bit of fun with it, and Watson is no stranger to that. I don't know how well you can hear me over the jazzy tune, but I'll just keep talking. So we took a Zoe cabinet and we secured it to the rear end of the truck, and we rode it around our facility, right? For a very long time, for several miles, and in the rain, and changing surfaces. So some of it was very smooth asphalt, and some of it was not so smooth asphalt. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest where we are, the roads are horrible. So remember earlier we were talking about the brass inserts? That's why these casters are staying in place. They are firmly connected to this furniture. So we aren't all boring, but we do go to extreme lengths to make sure that your furniture is good. Right. So I'm not going to let you go through the entire video, okay? But if anybody wants it, I'll send you a link to it. So beyond just the materials that we use in the construction of it, we want to talk about the craftsmanship, right? This is it's exhibited through the fine details. And the construction methods are foundational, right? The how-to. You have to have standards for how-to, but anything that is manufactured, any furniture manufacturers, is going to have a level of craftsmanship in it. For example, last year during the pandemic, we expanded our factory and we added a lot of new equipment, and we added this incredibly highly automated German manufactured powder coat booth, right? So this machine's supposed to do the work for us. It's amazing in that all of the powder that doesn't automatically adhere to the metal gets recycled and reused. We used to have to do that manually. We always reused our powder, but this prevents that. But the reality is we still have somebody on the front and the back that's getting those finishing touches. Machines are just so good, but it still takes a human. And the other aspect of it is the durability of that paint is only as good as the heating ovens that it goes through. The right temperature, the right speed on that conveyor belt, so it's in there for the right amount of time, will make or break the difference in your powder coat. So we do a lot of welding. So at Watson, we're very much vertically integrated. So we get in these 20-foot beams of steel that make the leg detail on this table called Moreau. And it's incredible. It's such a beautiful leg detail that we actually added a clear coat powder finish so that we could celebrate that welding. But then it comes down to, how do you get that, right? How do you get that beautiful weld detail? And that's the difference between MIG welding and TIG welding. We do both, right? We do both. MIG welding is pretty conventional. It's there isn't a great deal of skill, but if anyone knows a welder, there is a good amount of skill involved in it. But TIG welding requires both hands and your foot to do. It is a very high skilled craft. And at Watson, the people who do this TIG welding are all women, because it requires a higher level of patience that maybe some men don't have, but it is beautiful. It results, it results in this really beautiful weld detail that we can celebrate as part of the craftsmanship of the product. One of the other things that we focus on, right, is flush, is the fit and finish, right? So we want to have flush construction. And what does that mean? That means that you're squared off at your corners. So on this sidecar, you can see that the front cover completely covers the case of the furniture. The opposite of that is it's non-flush. It's shown up here in the corner. I tried to find a good picture of it. You'll see it when you're out and about and you see furniture. Now you'll start looking for this stuff, whether you have a fit and finish that is completely flush or non-flush. Non-flush is a little bit of a cheating, right? They use it a lot in kitchen cabinets because it doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to cover it with some molding. But for us, it has to be perfect, because you're going to see this. This is a mobile storage cart. You're going to see it from every angle. So it matters to us that it's square on every angle. And even though we use a lot of sophisticated equipment, our furniture qualifies as handmade. And our vertical integration means that we're doing everything from cutting our steel to welding it, to painting it, forming it, to make beautiful bases for our tables. We lay up our own laminates, and in the final stages of production, we're sanding it, we're applying hand finish or painting the edges of the surface by hand. So everything that goes out of our factory at some point is hand finished.
The big thing about that too is we're now looking at the quality as it's going through. Some of the manufacturers, especially the lesser price ones, they'll buy the board, the laminate boards already made up. Sometimes there'll be a high pressure laminate, sometimes there'll be a thermofused. They're not looking necessarily at the quality of what those places they're getting it from. They're just slapping it on and going on. With Watson or a higher quality, they're actually looking at it, feeling it, and everything else. So the chance of something going through that doesn't meet, the quality levels of what a quality manufacturer require are less likely to go through than they would the other.
Yeah, we're darn picky about our laminates, to a fault. Right now it's killing us because of the supply chain, because our quality standards are pretty darn high, and they're having a tough time keeping up with it. So comfort, right? Comfort is about how furniture makes you feel, not necessarily how it feels when you sit in it, though that does matter. And I could do another one of these on the quality of foam that goes into a seat. But in this case, we're going to talk about tactile comfort that's achieved through the design of the furniture and the functional comfort that you get through the placement of furniture. So this guy, Dieter Rams, you cannot come to Watson's factory without seeing a picture of him, seeing a couple of quotes of him around. He actually has one of the pillars of our brand message, which is functionality first. So the indifference towards people and the reality in which they live is actually the one and only cardinal sin in design. And that is a powerful statement, right? And we take it very seriously. Said differently, it means that the customer, the person that is sitting there using our furniture, we design with them in mind. So comfort is a state of mind, right? It's a state of physical ease, and it comes in a lot of forms. So here with Tia, this was one of the products that we gave just a recent launch, so I'm familiar with it. that we talked a lot about what comfort feels like. And so maybe it's access to power, right here at your fingertips, right there at the work surface. You have access to everything you need. The waterfall edge on the desk, right? So you don't have a hard edge against your forearms when you're using it. Or a softly radiused drawer pull instead of a cold handle, right? I mean, you may need it for ADA compliance, but to know that you have the option. So we think about the user's interface with the furniture when we design the product. And with this one in particular, when we designed Tia, we were going for an elevated sense of style in the private office, right? And so in doing so, we did something that we don't get to do very often, which is add a new edge detail. So the edge detail on this product, that is one of the options, is a comfort edge. And we were only able to achieve that waterfall edge. Remember, we laminate products. Laminate is not typically very pliable. So we introduced a product called Forbo, furniture linoleum, so that we could get this really soft waterfall edge. So now we don't just have that beautiful edge, we have this lovely, warm, tactile surface on the desk that gives us very elevated sense of style. We'll talk more about Forbo in a minute. So let's think about emotional comfort, right? We're all going back to the office. One day, my fingers are crossed. So what if we could bend space and just create pockets for people, right? So what if it didn't take any more space than the traditional linear layout that we're all used to, but we start to give people a sense of having their own space, right? And then we begin to imagine as that worker that this is our place and maybe my own private garden. So this is my refuge with a really nice view. And this now begins, the furniture has become a really comfortable place to work. So taking comfort to an entirely different level of how it is experiential, how you would feel about it. So not just that physical experience, but an emotional experience. And furniture functions in a way that increases the user's joy. Imagine that, right? Furniture could make you happy. And then we begin to feel good about what we're doing because of good design. So let's talk about materials, because I am on time. Materials are selected in commercial furniture because of the resilience, right? It's got to last a long time because you're not replacing furniture every 2 years, maybe 10, 15, right? So resilient and beautiful. So we select them with a purpose, and because at Watson, we believe our choices matter. So all of the core board we use, not just our surface board, but also the storage boards that we use are NAF, which means there's no added formaldehyde. There's always formaldehyde in board. It just is there, but there's some bad stuff in formaldehyde too. So we purposefully get board that is NAF free, or NAF, no added formaldehyde. And this matters because our people are cutting that wood, right, and sanding it, and then you guys are using it. So that matters to us. We used to get all of our steel was recycled. 97% at one point of the steel that we used was recycled. I don't know if you guys are aware, but it's really difficult to come by recycled materials in the United States anymore. So we've had to begin to source raw steel, natural, new steel, but it is 100% recyclable, right? That's the beautiful thing about using steel. Water-based adhesives, so there's no VOCs. That's good for us. It's good for you. We talked a little bit about the reclaimed powder. That means it stays out of the landfills, guys, and that's really important to us. PVC-free edge banding, only polypropylene, which is why we offer so many beautiful exposed edge details. And then we have a variety of textiles that are 100% post-consumer recycled, so PETs, which you guys are probably familiar with. All of our laminates are Green Guard certified. They all comply with healthy product declarations. They're all responsibly forest. We make those decisions when we get them. For the most part, we use Wilson Art's commercial grade laminate program, but there are some specialty laminates within ours that come from other manufacturers. Watson, if you get familiar with our products, you may notice that some of our desk sizes are maybe a little bit different from everyone else's. And that's because we think about the yield in the board, right? So if we're buying a 4x10 board, we want to make sure that we can get the maximum yield and we're not throwing away 12 inches of board at the end of the day. we think about making the use of every bit of that material. Even with our metal, right? When we're cutting out steel on the routers, we make sure that everything is nested nicely so we get the best amount of yield. And we talked about Forbo. So if you're not familiar with it, Forbo, the furniture linoleum is manufactured in Belgium. And it's a really beautiful product because it's 100% biodegradable. It's made of things like flaxseed, pine resin, some other things like wood flour, and it's colored with pigment. So everything practically you could peel it off the desk and eat it, but I would not recommend it because of the resin. But it's a nice fit for Watson because of our general thought of the selection of materials matters. And this is why. This is where we make the furniture. That's our corporate headquarters. It is in a beautiful old apple orchard in a place called Polesbo, Washington. We're on a septic system. There's a beautiful walking trail. There are deer, there are eagles, there are coyotes. There's a salmon stream on the backside of the property. So everything that we do matters to that land. And so we want to think about making the best choices here. So we do a CS certification for off-gassing, right? We actually, if you think about the carpet, the wall coverings, everything that goes into a space, the last thing you need is for the furniture to add anything to that. Durability in furniture means maybe sometimes using very powerful adhesives, but we have to make the right choices in those adhesives. So the sustainability isn't so much as getting a third-party declaration, you know, somebody's stamp on your product that says, hey, this is good for you. It's about doing the right thing, getting there, right? It comes from good practices in selecting your materials, good practices in the construction of those products, the methods that you use. And this is who we are, right? The product being made here, and here means a lot to us. Here is who we are, and our journey is to be a great steward of the land. I'll leave you with a quote from our owner, Cliff McKenzie. This is kind of, it's our mantra, right? We believe we should return the earth in better condition than we found it. And that summarizes how we feel about sustainability and our choices at Watson. Look at that. Any questions?
The other thing I just want to point out is too, is all this, doing all this as far as from a quality manufacturer, not only leads to a quality product, which also helps as far as the environment, the sustainability and that. So it costs a little more money to do things, you know, so we don't put that any more footprint, you know, the carbon dioxide footprint or CO2 footprint on the earth. And then two, you want to have furniture that lasts, so that way it doesn't go out into the landfills and everything else and add to that. I can't tell you how many times people have sat there and said, they talk out of one mouth that sit there and say about, you know, sustainability and green, they want to do the right thing. And then they go, well, if a desk or whatever, a chair breaks, who cares? I'll just buy another one for the price as far as that goes. Well, that just adds to, you know, the problems that we have in the world today. So with that, again, I just want to thank everybody. And if anybody does have any questions or comments or whatever, please feel free to shout out.
For sure. You can call me. Bypassed him altogether.
Oh, wow. They already do that.
This was fun, guys. I hope you'll invite me back again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sandy. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Hey, Pete.